And yeah, sometimes Dwight would set, a half-ass screen, and sometimes James would throw a forced entry pass at the last possible second. There was some petty stuff going on there.
Kelly Iko of The Athletic joining me, as he does every single week right here on Barry on Deck. Let's get to it, man. So I sent you an article. Let's start in the past, and then we'll move to the present, and if we need to, we'll talk about the future. But with Clint Capela having the season that he's having, he is drawing attention from a lot of folks. And when you look at ESPN stats and information and you see the leaders in different categories, you absolutely see Clint Capela at the top of at least two categories: blocks and rebounds. And I'm sure he's up there in field goal percentage as well, as he always has been. With this resurgence of Clint Capela and the Atlanta Hawks, they started talking to him about his time with the Rockets. And long story short, he said that the relationship between Dwight Howard and James Harden wasn't the best, that they barely got along, and that he thinks there might have been times when Dwight Howard was maybe a little lazy on picks that wouldn't get James open, because James would always call for the picks and want, an egregious amount of picks to be set for him to get him open to get his shot. What do you think about all this? I would love your thoughts. I hoped you had some opinion on this. I sent you the article.
Right.
Thoughts on all this and how it went down, and should he be spilling the tea like this?
I mean, at this point, we all know that there was something going on between, James and Dwight during those years. James wanted to be his team. Dwight, coming from that Orlando setup, wanted to be his team. It was kind of a situation where two guys were two low-key guys. They're not really going to be in your face, but it was kind of awkward because you kind of see the team trying to go in one direction versus the other. And yeah, sometimes Dwight would set, a half-ass screen, and sometimes James would throw a forced entry pass at the last possible second. There was some petty stuff going on there. But part of the reason why Clint Capela kind of rose to stardom was because he was willing to do, the work that Dwight didn't want to do. Dwight, everyone knows that Dwight, he wants to be a post-up guy, or he wanted to be a post-up guy, back to the basket, kind of like Shaq, and get his points from there. But the Rockets kind of wanted him to be a traditional, set screen and roll, because he was so good at it. But it's one of those things where, as a big man in those days, you kind of want to be the focal point of the offense, as we're seeing today with the Embiids and the Jokic's of the world. But Dwight just didn't have that skill set. And it kind of took some time for him to understand his offensive limitations. As great of a player as he was, there are just some things that he couldn't do. And for the betterment of the team, he needed to play a certain way, and everyone knows the story. Dwight said, either him or me. Obviously, they picked James.
Right choice, by the way. Right choice.
And now Dwight is playing, reserve to Joel Embiid in Philly. So I think that whole tenure, was kind of unnecessary because, James and Dwight could have been something special had they just put the egos aside and played a couple more seasons together. But, it is what it is.
Daddy's making a YouTube video!